You're listening to Tehachapi with Key Budge, Corey Costello, Greg Garrett, and Ashley Whitmore.
It's Tehachapi time. Key Budge, Greg Garrett today, and joining us, Jay Schlosser and Don Marsh. Gentlemen, welcome back to Tehachapi.
Good afternoon, Key.
Thank you.
Nice to have you guys. Greg and I were talking about things that are going on, some projects. Jay, I was in your department last week, meeting with Andrew, kind of going over some timelines on the things that are happening now. I guess the weather warmed up, and then we said it's go time.
Yeah, it's go
Full
time.
speed ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So now that you're right, now that the sun is shining and it's not raining or snowing, we have a lot to do this summer, a lot of maintenance projects for our infrastructure here in the city of Tehachapi. We have 12 different projects we're going to go over today. We've got Jay and Don, the two people that know intimately what's going on here. So we want to kind of clip through these and let everybody know that we continue to maintain and enhance our infrastructure in the city of Tehachapi.
I know weather has been the thing that's pushed everything back. It has a major impact on us and on this little city that we live in.
It was a really unique year, Key, because normally we get some weeks in the middle of winter where you can do some of this street-related work. But this was an exceptional year. Everybody knows that, right? It's the wettest year on record for the Southern Sierras in the history of taking the record since 1870. And we didn't have a single week all winter. So everything got, like eagerly waiting for the weather to break. And it's broken. It's good weather now. And so it's going a little crazy.
And we have
right
100% allocation for water from the state of California.
It's crazy.
So with all that said, though, Jay, your deadlines did not get pushed out. Just so you know.
No, I'm well aware.
We've got to get all this done before school starts.
Yeah. There's a joke running around this office that the collective number of hair follicles in the engineering department are very, very low for this very reason. We all get pretty stressed out at the timeline sometimes.
Are they falling out or are you pulling them out?
Well, I'll leave that open for debate. So,
let's start with some projects.
Let me just kind of briefly go. So 12 projects. We've got a lot of asphalt, road work. That's why Don is here. Jay is here. Jay's in that designing phase. Don does a lot of the implementation. You guys work together, collaborate on these projects, and we're going to have roads, sometimes multiple projects overlapping each other, which means there'll be construction in different areas of the city. Because of the weather, we don't have any choice in this but try to forge through while we've got the warm weather, get it done before fall if we can.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We actually had a number of projects lined up and awarded, given to a contractor, contracts signed before winter set in, and we opted not to start them under the belief that we weren't going to be able to finish them, and we made the right choice there, definitely, since we had 4 or 5 months of too cold weather for a lot of this work, but that just means that the contractors were ready to start as soon as the weather cleared up. No time taken to bid, no time to advertise, no time to sign contracts and have initial meetings, all that stuff. So
one of those projects that we were wasted no time jumping in is the Pinion Street Extension Project.
You want me to jump first? Because I'm excited about this project.
Yeah, me too. I tried to cut Key off earlier. Let's talk about projects. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jay.
So the Pinion project extends Pinion from its current, what would that be, Eastern Inn near Brandon Lane. That's near, which neighborhood is that?
Heritage Oaks.
Heritage Oaks neighborhood, that's right. And extends it east over to Denison. That's a route that a lot of folks that just travel to and from the high school, quite frankly, utilize. And the total project's going to be $1.4 million. Let me say that again clearly, $1.4 million. We relocated some power poles through there, and then we'll be paving 36 feet of asphalt. That's the width. That'll contain 2 travel lanes and bike paths on either side of it, so some comfortable shoulders as you roll through there. So the exciting news is that that's one of those contracts ready to go. Contractors out there now, if you've driven by, you'll definitely see the road. It's there. It's cut to grade. Subgrade's been prepped and moisture conditioned. They'll be bringing in base this week, and the schedule is to pave next Monday. So a week from today, so it's going to happen. It'll pave in a day or two, and all of a sudden there'll be a road where there wasn't a road.
Yeah, it's easier construction because there's no traffic control key, right. And it's just kind of an open field. With this project, we're going to be connecting Curry to Denison.
That's right.
Which is a big deal, right, for the school traffic. We've talked about this project several times over the last several months, but it's going to really enhance your ability to choose a route as you're going east-west through the valley.
I also think a lot of folks that are commuting out to the desert, coming back on Highline or leaving on Highline in the morning and heading east will utilize that if you live in those neighborhoods, right? So if you live near Tompkins or if you live in Heritage Oaks or you live in, what's the older neighborhood that's immediately west? Is that Sutter? what was the name of that neighborhood? Dang it.
Blair Ranch.
Blair Ranch, that's it. So all of y'all will have an easier time getting on and off a Highline if you head east. So I think there's some mutual benefit there.
Yeah,
And
good stuff.
How long ago did you start this project looking for grants? We go back quite a few years.
Yeah, 3, 4, 5, maybe even now. So it's funded with...
Well, maybe even a little more. The other day somebody told me, well, the city's building it for Sage Ranch. No.
No.
We started this project a couple years before Sage Ranch was even somebody's thought, before we even knew there was a Sage Ranch project.
So this is CMAQ money, or Congestion Mitigation Air Quality. It's federal and state money associated with congestion mitigation or improving air quality. This project checks both of those boxes, and yeah, they take about 3 to 4 years from grant approval to execution because there's a lot of work. It's federal money, so it has to go through the hoops with both the state and the feds, which is why it takes us 3-4 years from the time we get the grant. And then it's usually like a year before we get the grant that we envision the grant. And so this has been around for quite a while and making its way through. We're excited to see it pave out.
Now that I think about it, the Pinion project ending there on the east end at Denison, Don, we just wrapped up the Denison Waterline project right there as well.
Yeah, you talk about multiple projects going on in the same area and coordination of those. This was one of those projects that we had to finish that Denison pipeline before we could start the Pinion paving project. So, yeah, a lot of coordination there. And that's just one example, and you'll see some more of that as we go through these.
I know we're excited to have that Denison water project done. That was something that Andrew told me. He goes, no, they've got that buttoned up, and now they were able to jump in on Pinion. So that's a little bonus
it
project.
really worked out well. It was by design, quite frankly. So super proud of the team getting those kind of get one and then make another basket and make another basket. It's how you win games.
So we've got Pinion going on. We've also got some prep work for a slurry seal going on right now.
That's actually y'all's gas tax funds. So believe it or not, that does come to the city. The extra money that goes in SB1 is the Senate bill that authorized that. I can't remember the name the Congress state. Do you remember, Don?
SB1.
Yeah, okay. It was some really long name about how great they are and what they're going to do for us. But those funds do come to us, and we utilize those to improve the roads, which is a good connection of tax funds. I mean, you drive on the roads and you pay the taxes to keep the roads up. So we are going to be slurry sealing a number of neighborhoods. That process is a lot less invasive. That's just an emulsion, an asphalt emulsion that goes down on the roads to rejuvenate them and extend their life. So we're typically targeting roads that are in better shape already now when we spend those funds, because it's very inexpensive compared to repaving roads. We have some of those later on the list of roads we're going to reconstruct that are older and more worn out that need a heavier lift. But we should see that slurry seal work start this week, towards the end of the week. If you're in one of the affected neighborhoods, you will receive a door tag, will be on your front door. Usually the downtime for you is only a couple of hours, 2 to 4 hours of downtime. You'll get a door tag. We'll let you know when we'll be in your neighborhood, and it's your kind of chance to drive your car out of your driveway and park it a couple blocks over if that's if you have to come or go during that time. Otherwise, we'll just suggest you stay in your house.
I would suggest if I live there, don't drive your car over this.
Oh
product.
yeah, don't do that.
Right.
Leave it till the next day.
Yeah.
Let it set overnight, let it cool off, let it do its thing, right? Because asphalt, it dries out, it needs moisture. We're putting moisture back in. It's like, think about putting lotion on your hands. After a minute, it's still greasy for a while, right? And you need that to soak in.
Yeah.
So let it soak in, and don't get oil all over your car.
Yeah.
Just a little more detail there. They do more work than just laying down the stuff that you see. There's a lot of prep work that goes into that. First of all, cleaning the existing asphalt, spraying for weeds so that the weeds don't come up through the emulsion, and then sealing those cracks with a crack sealer. It's a tar-like material. And then, of course, after they lay down the emulsion, then they'll come back and they'll do any striping that needs to be done with stop bars and stop painting on the road. So all that will get redone as well.
The striping, though, it's usually days, if not weeks later, because you need the oil to kind of do its thing.
Yeah, good point.
Aerate, so don't expect. So please drive safe out there, because there may not be some paint in some areas.
They'll typically throw down stickers.
Yes.
It's 14 to 30 day wait time, depending upon the type, and I don't recall off the top of my head the type of paint or thermoplastic they're intending to use. But yeah, 14 to 30 days before we'll come stripe. So yeah, it's not, we're waiting on for a reason.
And then Key, you put this out, right? It's on our social media. There's been a press release. So
Tehachapi News already has it up on their website.
You can look and find out what street, what day, if there are any changes to that, of course, we'll put that immediately, but that's the current plan.
And then as we looked at it, and I went through with Andrew and we went over some of these roads we did half of a road like north of one street and south of on a different day, just so that we didn't have a shut down an entire neighborhood. So there was a lot of
trash pickup.
Right. A lot of thought and preparation went into that to schedule around making sure trash isn't interrupted, minimal impact to residents, so that way they can get in, do the job they need to do, but also think about the convenience of the neighborhood.
I had a guy once. He came to City Hall several years ago and was complaining about the maintenance of a street. And his comment was, just let it all turn to dirt. I can't afford to, to have you do this. And it was so short-sighted. I mean, honestly, I'm being very critical here, but we need to maintain what we have because otherwise it does fall to dirt. No one wants that, of course.
And I want to transition to that, to Don. This is a part of your road maintenance matrix that you have, is we're going to talk about different types of projects with our asphalt that are coming up, but it falls into the study that you did through your department. Let's recap that.
This is part of our 10-year pavement maintenance plan that we have. This particular funding source, we tend to save up that money over a couple of years, and we'll do one of these projects every 2 or 3 years, and spend the funding for that. This is just part of that, along with our normal annual grind and overlay projects. Some of the grant-funded projects are plugged in there as well, as far as some of the things we're going to talk about down the line here with Valley Boulevard and.
Well, don't give it up yet.
And real quick, this slurry seal project is about $350,000, but maybe to give some context to it, the Pinion Street project probably is on the order of magnitude of somewhere around $5 to $8 a square foot to place a brand new road. The slurry seal is somewhere around 5 to 10 cents a square foot to place down the slurry seal. And so again, that's the thinking behind a maintenance plan, like the one that Don has generated, where we do spend some of our money now on roads that are in pretty good shape because it's pennies on the dollar. We can slurry seal the same street 5 times in the next 20 years and still be a fraction of the cost of repaving it in a full dig out and replace situation. And so cities all across the nation have adopted this strategy for dealing with roads. And we're fortunate. Again, we've got some other projects where we're going to tackle some of those harder to do roads, but it's important for people to understand how distinctly different the cost is. It is orders of magnitude difference.
Yeah, good point,
and it's
Jay.
dollars and cents.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to budget to make sure that you've got enough money to take care of this, and you look at what's the bang for the buck, and you can cover a lot more pavement that'll add longevity to it. That's some smart planning that we do here.
For sure. And so the third one we can talk about, we were just briefly talking about striping earlier, Don, but we have what we're calling the enhanced striping project. So a lot of paint going down on our streets and roads.
Yeah, this is a lot of edge lines. So some people call them fog lines, but the lines on the right-hand side of the road, basically redoing all of those throughout town, nearly all of them, and then center lines as well. And that includes stop bars and stops as well. That's a wide impact throughout the whole city, all parts of town on the major.
And when do we expect that to start? A couple weeks from now?
Yeah, it's very close. Andrew was just telling me that they're getting, I think, down to about 30 days left on their contracts, so they have to get it done.
That's right, because we awarded this contract months ago, but then it started raining and snowing, and all of a sudden you're in deep winter, and you got to have dry pavement.
We delayed it until the end of March, and then the contractor has not initiated that work. They're doing the prep work and pre-work right now, getting ready. But
they should come in and knock it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
They have amazing technology, the machines, they're spraying paint, and obviously if you see a paint apparatus, don't get anywhere near it, don't drive over it. You know, we're putting out, caution signs and different things, but we don't want you to drive through wet paint. You see that from time
I would
to time.
imagine they'll do all their work within 3 or 4 days.
And they're not gonna paint over a dead skunk, right? Yeah, remember that a couple years
Yeah,
ago
dude.
in a neighboring city.
Yeah, I do distinctly remember that. Fun fact for you guys is that those stripes go down with glass beads embedded in them. And so I don't know if you've ever noticed how reflective stripes are to your headlights at night. They're called a fog line because they're there when it's foggy, right? You're supposed to look down to the right to see the white line. But, it's interesting, the science it's not just Home Depot paint, that goes down. This is
Not just reflective for your headlights, but also for your self-driving cars.
Yeah.
The technology that they have, the self-driving technology is looking at that paint stripe, and the reflection, is that radar technology, I suppose.
That's exactly what and that's
yeah.
why a few years ago, if you guys recall, every major state freeway got restriped with a wider stripe, with a 6-inch stripe in the center and on the edges. That was an initiative put into place by the state of California to prepare the ground for Tesla and the other self-driving cars, because they needed a brighter, wider line to make sure that the cameras sensed it.
And so those
dealt
people
with it.
that are asleep at the wheel, driving their Tesla,
reading their book,
we want to make sure they stop when there's a stop bar, and they can keep going and whatever. I'm being facetious, but certainly it's all about safety.
Even any new car now, if they're not self-driving, they have the lane detection that
right.
detects. So the cleaner and sharper those lines are, the better it is for those cars as well.
Oh, I'm just not ready to be the Jetsons yet. I'm just not there.
Well,
we won't need lines if you have that.
I know, that's true.
You'll be
I know.
motoring along just 5 feet above the ground.
It takes me to a place where I'm thinking about, cartoons, and I go, are we living the cartoon life now? Is that what we've translated to? Maybe it's the vision of some of those cartoonists and people who write science fiction that it all comes to fruition.
Maybe so.
I don't know.
I don't know. Nice black asphalt, nice crisp paint. It not only looks nice, but it's effective.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do. So the next one on the list is what we're calling the Valley Boulevard resurfacing. So let's talk about that a little bit, Jay.
Yeah, so this is also federal money that we get every couple of years. We're going to repave Valley from Curry to Beach Street.
All the way from Curry to Beach.
Yes.
That area that...
Beach Street, not the beach, but Beach Street.
Not all the way to the beach.
Point
We're not going to Pismo.
Yeah. There's not enough money printed this year to cover 58 all the way down the hill. I don't know. That's what it feels like these days. But yeah, we're hoping to actually knock out Valley in 2 cycles, which isn't necessarily 2 years. It may be 2 years apart from each other, to do this first piece from Curry to Beach with the funds that we have now, and then to try in the next cycle to get from Beach to Tucker. That's the plan in the 10-year plan. Tell me I'm right, Don. I think that's right.
Yep.
Right?
No, that's exactly right.
And so we're going to grind out a couple of inches. We're going to reprofile the road. And what that means in our business is we're going to give it a new shape. We're going to reset the crown line where it belongs, and then slope the road in either direction towards the gutters in a manner that both works for drainage, for getting the water off the roads and not having ponding water, but also we try to set that crown line in an intelligent place. The ride factor for you in your car is intelligent and makes sense. If you've ever driven on a road and crossed a crown line, it's almost like crossing a speed bump. So where we position that is important. We are also keeping an eye on the fact that we are hoping to get a grant to widen out Valley in that same section in the coming couple of years. We're going to find out about that here pretty soon. But if we do have it, then where we set that crown line now matters for that future widening effort. So there's a little bit of crystal balling happening in the engineering department as we try to dovetail 2 endeavors together. We're excited to do this. This road is traveled by a lot of folks in and out of the city. A lot of folks here in the community utilize that route, and there's no doubt that we need to spend the time getting that cleaned up and smoother.
A lot of potholes, a lot of patching,
Yeah.
a lack of attention to that road over the years.
Don's guys are going to be really happy because we'll spend a lot less time maintaining it.
Yep.
That's for sure. So, Jay, when you were talking about the center line, or the crown, I should say, it may feel a little off because the north side yet has not been set with curb gutter, the ultimate curb gutter and sidewalk on the north side. So after this repaving effort, it may feel a little odd, but in the next couple of years, it will be correct.
Yeah, that's the idea. I think that it's going to feel okay now. That's my hope.
Well, the
But-
only thing that matters, it's going to be smooth.
yeah,
Man,
that's
this to me is all of these are a big deal, but I'm super excited about this particular project Key. It is going to, transform that area, by 1,000%. Everybody in this area, this region drives Valley Boulevard. They just do.
Don, when we mention this as resurfacing, where does that fit into that matrix? Because you've got, let's see, your matrix talked about repair, replace, rehabilitate. So this one is different than the slurry seal. I heard Jay mention there's like 2 inches ground down. So are we just kind of scraping the top?
On Valley Boulevard, right, we're grinding down a couple inches off the asphalt and laying down a couple inches of brand new asphalt over the top. And so, this is part of the 10-year maintenance plan.
And this is because the base is not destroyed. It's there. It's repairable.
Right.
Okay.
It's in good shape. Yep.
Yeah,
and it's just the top part and the patching and all of those temporary repairs that have been made. This will have a completely clean new surface on the top.
And it needs more than a slurry seal, because that would not be addressing some of those other issues.
Yeah, slurry doesn't really help the potholes.
Right.
Doesn't fill in any of the cracks. A new layer of asphalt does that.
in the context of my earlier. This is about $1 to $2 a square foot. So this is in between a seal coat, which is a few cents a square foot, up to a major dig out and reconstruct. So the short way of thinking of it is the foundation is sound. It's like new carpet or tile.
Okay.
And the other one is like carpet cleaning or vacuuming. Does that help?
It
give
does.
it some context?
It definitely does.
There's a lot of engineering going on. It's not just asphalt,
Right.
right? There's so much behind the scenes. The next project, grind and overlay, E, F, and Poly Street. So we're getting a little more technical on this, aren't we?
Yeah, so the process for this project is similar to what we're doing on Valley. We're grinding it down. In some areas, we're just doing the edges of the road. In some areas, we're doing the full width. But it's an overlay project, a grind and overlay project, where we're grinding off some of the asphalt and then laying down new asphalt.
So what are the boundaries on E Street, on F Street, and Poly? Obviously, we're not doing the full end-to-end. What are the boundaries?
Yeah, Poly, we're doing from Tehachapi Boulevard to C Street.
C Street, yeah.
Yeah, so Poly is in horrible condition, and sees quite a bit of traffic. So we'll be replacing that. Again, we're grinding the full width on that entire street to C Street. F Street is from Mulberry to Curry, so that's quite a bit also. And that street also is in horrible condition. Some of that is just a pure overlay because the road is flat enough. We can build it up in the middle and then taper it off on the edges. That'll be an edge grind and an overlay. And then E Street is also from Mulberry to Curry. And then we also have an option to do a portion of D Street as well. The way we do a lot of these is that we get pricing for more than we know we can afford so that we can pick and choose how much we can do. So we have, I think this is around $700,000 worth of work. We know that we're going to ask for more than that more than what we think it's going to cost. So in other words, we might ask for $800,000 worth of a bid for $800,000 worth of work just to see how those prices come back. You never know. We've had cases where the pricing comes back really good and we're able to do the full scope. There are other times when the prices come back and go, okay, it came out at $900,000. Now let's cut back and decide what we can afford and what we can't. So in the bidding on this will be F Street, but we're not super confident that we're going to have enough money to do that.
Yeah, it's a bidding strategy is an interesting part of the civil engineering world because there's a serious amount of money that it takes a contractor to sign contracts with us, posting bonds for that, and to mobilize their equipment to the job site and to reorient their entire machine, meaning their people, towards a project, right? So that's a sunk cost if you do one road or 5 roads. That's the same thing. That giant grinder, that $1 million piece of equipment has to be shipped up the hill from wherever it is now. The interesting thing is if you scale your work, you can often get a very advantageous price for laying down the asphalt if you do what Don and the team have done, which is to set together bid schedules that give us options, because you might find that last road that you've added that you're not sure you can afford is much cheaper than the rest of the roads that are in your bid. And the reason is because at that point you're just paying for the extra asphalt. The equipment's already covered in the previous part of the bid, et cetera. So we're trying to be as creative and flexible as possible when we put these out to bid, maximize our dollars, deliver the best product, do good work, to do high quality
That strategy
work.
has worked really well for
One,
us.
one other part of that strategy too that I get a lot of questions about this is that by grouping the streets that we're paving in the same geographic area right next to each other, essentially, you can see this, it's E, F, and D, and Poly. They're all right there next to each other. That also helps with the mobilization costs and the coordination of the contractor and being more efficient working right in the same area. If you do one street on one part of town and then all the way across town, you do another one and the other side, it's a lot less efficient for the contractor. Sometimes, even though there may be a street that is not the worst street in town, it just makes more sense to pave it when you're right there because it doesn't really cost you that much more to get that street paved.
Yeah, that's a really good point for somebody listening going, well, my street's worse than that street is. And the answer is your street's on the list. We know we're paying attention to it, but to Don's point, there's a lot that goes into how we coordinate these projects and we lay them out, and we need to be conscious of that kind of stuff. Otherwise, we just get half the work done that we could otherwise get with the money we've got. So,
well, the next one on my list is kind of a bummer, quite frankly, and it's last year's grind and overlay. We had a couple streets over by Jacobson Middle School, Anita, and others that just did not meet the standards that we require and the contractor signed up for. So, Jay, we're looking at requiring the contractor to redo those streets. So, my apologies up front, but of course, for the inconvenience, but we certainly will require always, no matter what we build, if we spend taxpayer dollars on a project, it's got to be done to the standards.
Yep.
And these streets were not, and we're working with the contractor and their insurance company to figure out a solution. We could very well be repaving the roads that we just repaved last year, but not with taxpayer dollars. This is with a contractor or their insurance dollars, not your dollars.
Yeah, that's correct. So last year we paved Anita C, Maple Elm, and Golden West Court, and we did a project or a process similar to what we were just describing, where we take off portions of the road and then put back an inch or two that those were appropriate for those roads. We had some problems that manifested themselves similarly in each of those roadways, and that begins to be a real telltale sign for us in engineering that there have been some process problems when the work was done. It's pretty hard to catch those when it's happening because all that paving often occurs in a few days. They're in, they're out, all the equipment's there, all the people are there. And so we started seeing cracking develop, and that cracking lets moisture in, and moisture's the death of roads, by the way. Like that's the number one biggest issue. That's why patchwork never lasts the same as a fresh road, is because you've created a joint where moisture can get in under the asphalt and the base that you place. So we quickly identified after that happened, actually this was last fall, we identified the flaws in the work and began a conversation with the contractor about fixing it. It's a big problem though, because it's a significant amount of money for the contractor. This often puts everyone in a really difficult position. But the city's position is we paid for a road that's going to last 10, 15, 20 years. This road's going to last 2 if we're lucky. That's not what we paid for. That's not what our taxpayers paid for. And so we worked through the winter with the contractor. We were unable to come to an agreement with the contractor and have now working with the contractor's bonding company, which is why we, as a part of these projects, we ultimately pay for them in the contract when we require a contractor to bring us a bond for the work, which is basically security against something going wrong and not being properly produced. But this is why you do it.
Right. And I think it's worth noting this contractor is not paving any of the roads that we previously talked about or the ones that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
And we don't need to spend a lot of time on it other than to say we'll be redoing some of the roads that we did last year. This is kind of
the downside to going with low bid.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're required by the contract code to pick the lowest bid.
That's right.
And
sometimes it doesn't work out. Yep.
This is the result.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Okay, the next one I have on my list, Dawn, you're going to be resurfacing, or we will be resurfacing a lot of public parking lots within the city of Tehachapi. So some slurry seal, I guess.
Yeah, it's similar to a slurry seal for the parking lots downtown at City Hall, corner of F and Robinson, the parking lot there next to Southern Shooters on F Street, and the parking lot that the city owns next to Taco Sandwich. So we'll be doing all of that. And then a major rehabilitation of the parking lot at the downtown senior center in Tehachapi. So some good work there. Mostly it's just maintenance work that we need to do on a periodic basis. Again, on the resurfacing is just preventive maintenance to extend the life of the existing asphalt.
Seal the cracks. Don't let the water get in, right?
Exactly.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay. And then the next one I have, Key, is the Brentwood Pedestrian Facilities. What's that, Jay?
We successfully obtained a grant. A TDA is the acronym for that. It is Transportation Development Act, Article 3 funds. Anyway, it's pedestrian improvement. So we're going to be building sidewalks or filling in all the gaps of sidewalks on Brentwood from Curry all the way to Beach, if I'm correct, Don.
That's correct, yeah.
And so we're excited about that. That design is about 90% complete at this point. Thankfully, TDA funds are relatively easy to deliver, meaning from the time we finish design to actually starting to construct them in my world is a relatively simple process. There's not a ton of steps to step through there. So we're excited to get that done and to deliver that out into the bidding world probably in summer, meaning we'll construct probably in fall, and looking forward to it. I love the sidewalks not only because they invite people out of their homes to walk down the street or to take a walk with their family, because I don't know about you, but when I'm with my kids or I got my dog on a leash or something like that, I don't want to walk in the road. I just don't. I don't feel comfortable in that setting, not because I can't control my kids or my dog, but I can't control that person coming screaming down the street that's on their cell phone and not paying attention. So sidewalks create that safe space. They create that neighborhood feel, in my opinion. So
Absolutely.
There's a lot of kids walking to school down Brentwood, too. So.
Yeah, that's right.
that's exactly right.
That's probably why we were able to achieve the funding,
There's
right?
a lot of it,
There's
yeah.
scoring. When you apply for grants, there's scores
Yep.
that have to do with that.
So, yeah, we're looking to have that done by the end of the year. That's the plan.
Awesome.
It stands now.
So speaking of sidewalks, we have North Side Neighborhood Sidewalk Phase 3. What does that mean?
Yeah, that was I Street. We get a small pot of money from the Community Development Block Grant Program that's administered by the County of Kern. Those funds can only be spent in that particular neighborhood, given the census data about that neighborhood. That's what determines where those funds can be spent. So year after year, if you've noticed it all, if you've lived here in the town for long, step by step, we've been adding sidewalks and tidying up that neighborhood north of the railroad tracks, south of the city airport. And so this is phase 3. This is the next one. We're going to do a block or two on I Street. Unfortunately, the amount of money we get has not gone up. Inflation has. And so each time we execute one of these projects, we get a little less done than we did in the previous cycle. But we're still going to spend it, and we're going to spend it to improve the neighborhood. Same kind of concept as Brentwood. So looking forward to that nice little tidy up project.
Good project. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then also, continuing with the sidewalk theme, we have the Transit Center Sidewalk Connection. So that's on Tehachapi Boulevard.
Yeah,
What are the boundaries of that project?
Yeah, this one I'm pretty excited about. So this is just one of those ones that my engineering brain loves because we're tidying up a little missing spot of roadway. So we're gonna widen out the road and extend sidewalk on the north side of Tehachapi Boulevard. So that's the side where the city's park and ride is at, there at the intersection of Mill Street and Tehachapi Boulevard. And we're going to run west from there through about a 200-yard section where we don't have curb and gutter finished.
So connect it to J&H Automotive.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so right now, if you're driving westbound, you go from 2 lanes to 1 lane in that little section, and then right back to 2 lanes in front of J&H Auto. Most people don't ever get back into that right lane because it yet necks down by the time you get close to Antelope Run and down close to Big Papa's and stuff. So we're going to fill that little gap in. We're going to put in the curb, gutter, and sidewalk. We're going to put in the asphalt to widen it out, and we're going to be restriping the road to make it make some sense. Pretty small project, but pretty big benefit to transportation movement through that area, in my opinion.
It'll be safer and look nicer, that's for sure.
Yep.
Really excited about that. And then moving away from streets and roads and curb, gutter, sidewalk, we'll go into the Valley Park project. Key, I know we've talked about this project more than a couple times, but it's been designed. We're going out to bid, and we expect to be building a brand new park in the city of Tehachapi on Valley Boulevard. So what's the schedule look like for that, Jay?
Yeah, so hoping to head out to bid here pretty soon. The design is in its final stages. We are pre-ordering the five-a-side soccer park. So I know we've mentioned that before, probably the biggest single amenity. Although, frankly, guys, there's going to be a really neat play equipment at that park. I've seen the renderings now. It's a really expansive set, because you can get different ones with different little modules and rocket ships and 1,000 colors and all that kind of stuff. So we were taking a look at what the budget had and the space that we had available. So we're excited to have
Did we get play equipment that you like or a kid will like?
What's the difference?
What's the difference? Wow, that was a good comeback. There is no difference.
Yeah. So
there's actually quite a few amenities at that park. Not only the five-a-side, but a giant playground, like Jay said. There's some picnic tables with sunshades,
with covers,
some really nice
We're going
landscaping.
to have some enhanced parking over there off of
Additional
Linden
parking.
Court.
Yeah.
Some nice lighting. It's going to be super.
it'll be
super nice.
well
I
lit.
can't
So
wait.
we're close to ordering the soccer park equipment because it's so specialized. We pre-order that and deliver it to our contractor. It's about a $300,000 item on a $2 million park. So it's going to be really nice when it's done. I think it'll be a real jewel for the community. Have we talked yet about the naming contest? Do we need to?
I didn't know there was a name. It's called the Valley Park.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
All right. Out to work this summer is the hope, is to be under construction towards late summer, and it'll carry us at least to the end of the year, and depending upon weather, it could carry us into spring next year before it's complete. But planting becomes the tricky piece, right? Around here, you either plant in fall or spring, but you better not plant in January or you're throwing your money away. So that's my big concern is that if it delays even a little bit, then that final stage won't occur until spring. But either way, we're going to be pleased with the result.
And Key, before we go on to the next project, which is, kind of out of the public realm a bit, I just would like to remind everybody, please drive safe. Please be aware of your surroundings. Please keep up to date with our social media and other things because, we're spending well over $10 million this year on maintenance projects in the city of Tehachapi, and we need your help. We need to be able, if there are detours or if there are delays, which there will be, please be patient because we are improving and maintaining your public infrastructure. It matters. And so we want people, as Caltrans says, be safe. We want the
Follow those detour signs,
yeah,
please.
follow the detour sign. Just be aware. And we're working really hard. We're super aware of, school being in session and out of session and, all of those things. That comes into play with our schedule. But things happen. And we don't have the ultimate control on all these projects. The contractor has a lot to say here.
Yeah, I know recently with one of the projects, Don, that your team was working on Tucker, you and I had conversations about detours and, placement of signage and when we should put out the word on social media and release it to the media. So we really try to have a strategic plan in place, but we definitely want you to pay attention and follow along. And just because you see one post, don't think that that's the same post for all of the events. We're going to create multiple as this it's kind of like a time-lapse photography event. It's going to slowly morph its way across, but it's going to be pretty quick at the same time.
Yeah, this summer, living, breathing documents. I mean, this is all kind of daily. We want to make sure that we get information out there real time, but also try to help us plan.
Yeah,
and none of this keeps into consideration what the private sector is doing in our town, the investments they're making in various places. Those are all also happening simultaneously. To your point about money, I just added it up real quick. What we just talked about, that list that we just provided is $7 million worth of work.
Yeah.
The last project on our list to talk about, that taxiway, is another $7 million. That won't take more than this year to complete.
So $14 million,
We're launching
and we have a strong budget that allows us, because I'll remind the listeners, when you get a grant, the grantee doesn't just send you a check. Right? You have to spend your own money processing everything from the design and the engineering and the construction and the build out, and then you get reimbursed afterwards, and it could be 30, 60, 90 days later. And so if we didn't have a strong budget, there's no way we could do this work.
Does that include the Denison Water project that I threw in there as Project 13?
No, that's in addition to that. Yeah, that's not. And maybe can I take a minute just to shout out for my team on that? We're receiving our first audit tomorrow from.
Well, not your first audit. I mean, we're audited all the time.
Oh no, the first audit on one of these projects.
Okay.
We're being audited on the Pinion Street project tomorrow. It's not alarming. This is normal course for what we do. we're not being picked out of some suspicion. Instead, it's standard practice with Caltrans and the FHWA is to be looking at least half the projects you deliver. They have either a pre, mid, or post audit where they come and look at all of our books to make sure that all their giant binders worth of policies and procedures are followed. And so those are the unsung heroes in these moments, are the folks that keep us square so that we're in good shape to go after this money and to improve this community. We desperately work hard to bring back more tax dollars to this community than you all send out of this community. And we think the proof's in the pudding. We delivered a lot of projects in the last 15 years, but it's a lot of work.
For sure. And I consider an auditor an extension of our finance department. Don't scare us at all. As a matter of fact, we have clean audits all the time. And if there is a little tidbit here and there, I want to know about it.
Yeah.
I want our books to be squeaky, squeaky, squeaky clean. So it's a good thing. And so the last project that at least I have on my list is over at the airport. Over a $7 million investment in drainage improvements and taxiway relocation. Because we've talked about this, I believe, before, but the taxiway and the runway are a little too close to each other, when it was built originally compared to what the FAA standards are today. So we need to move the taxiway south away from the runway and at the same time, drainage improvement. So a $7 million plus project, almost entirely funded by the FAA with some Caltrans aeronautics money and then some of our general fund money mixed into that. So that's a big deal. That's a lot of money and will improve the airport tremendously.
The airport is a big asset for our community.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fire department is there, and we talk about every fire season. It is used regionally here for Kern County from when they're fighting these wildland fires and making sure that we've got a safe area for pilots to come in, take off, store their aircraft, whatever it is during the maintenance and everything else. I'm not a plane guy. You can tell real quick.
But if you own an asset, you need to maintain the asset and improve the asset, and that's what we're doing.
And I just see it getting used, and the public, even though I may not have a plane, I benefit because of the safety factor and elements that it brings by having it here in our community.
That's right. And then Jay, real quick, talk to us about the new Caltrans maintenance station. Of course, this is not a city project, but the state of California is investing money in our city for the Caltrans maintenance station behind Tractor Supply.
Yeah, that's right. So just east of Tractor Supply, they purchased over 5 acres. I actually helped them identify that site. Part of my job as a development director was, so as soon as I heard that they were considering putting in, it's an $18 million project, putting in for the money at headquarters, I drove to Bishop actually to meet with them and pull up Google Earth and try to find them a home. I wanted to see them land here in the city, and no offense to the county, but not in the county. I wanted them here in the city. And so all that culminated with the project that's set to launch. Contract's been awarded to a local contractor, which is exciting. That's great to see. Those jobs will stay here as that money is expended. So we're excited to see that occur. And they should break ground. It'll take them 1 year to 2 years. It will include extensive facilities for Caltrans's work. So buildings for maintaining all of their heavy equipment, washing facilities for their equipment, brine facilities. There should be a big upgrade. We're excited. Greg pressed hard on this one about an upgrade to the way they tackle snow and ice on the freeway. And so they have, in other places in the state, they have brining facilities where they on-site produce salt water and then utilize that to spray down on the roads in order to keep the ice down instead of what they do now, which is just cinders, which is what both the city, the county, and Caltrans all use up here, is just putting down a real fine cinder material that helps people from sliding off the road. And then they're also including crew quarters and offices. I tell people it's not a very exciting or glamorous project. Most people will never set foot on that property, but if there were ever a major earthquake or a major catastrophe, those resources are a really big deal. And so we're appreciative that Caltrans District 9 looking to make a major upgrade in their ability to maintain their assets here in this area.
And we appreciate the investment.
Sure.
And then one last thing, State Highway 58, between the city of Tehachapi and Bakersfield, we've been talking about climbing lanes, a lot key, and the quality, it's falling apart, especially because of this winter. There's a lot of problems in the slow lane. It's failure of the asphalt and concrete. This Friday, Jay and I are meeting with Senator Shannon Grove, Councilmember Smith, and the new state director of Caltrans on Friday to talk about 58. We continue to push that dialogue about the quality of the roadway, the lack of the climbing lanes, and we're getting the attention or keeping the attention of the state. So looking forward to the conversation we're going to have with the new director of the entire state for Caltrans this Friday.
That's good stuff. It's nice to see that we are engaged. This new director has only just been...
No, it's just he's being confirmed as we speak, actually.
That's very important. It shows the relationships that we have with our elected officials, our state representatives, and that they recognize Tehachapi and what's important to us. They get us a seat at the table to talk about this. And this just doesn't... This impacts the region, and further. But, we kind of become the spokesperson for the region.
That's right.
All right.
Glad to do it.
Before we wrap things up, Don and I had a conversation last week about your guys, a couple of guys, and I just want to kind of brag on them because I was talking to you about the slurry seal, and then we were talking about potholes, and then that you guys, with the potholes, you guys have gone out and you're finding new material. And a member of your team is doing research, and he gets excited about trying to find a fix to a problem.
Yeah, I have to give props to Jimmy Ashland, who's our lead for our streets division. This guy, he spends his nights and weekends on YouTube, on the internet, looking for products that can help make our streets and roads better. He really did go out of his way to investigate different products and try and find a solution for a very kind of a unique situation on Tucker Road with they were potholes technically, but they were very, very thin and too thin to use a normal asphalt mix or something to try and patch that. And so he came up with this solution that he thought would work well, and so far it's working fantastic.
That was my next ask. Is it still holding on?
It's working
okay,
really
good.
well. Great drive. Nothing's breaking out yet, and we actually went back and we've done some other areas throughout town, and we plan to do more. Props to him.
We've really stepped it up, Don. I'm so proud of our guys. It's a good thing.
Yeah, I wanted to just along those lines just point out we've been doing a lot of other asphalt work as well with our internal crews besides just Tucker Road, but obviously pothole patching. The rain has just tore up the roads all over town. We've been doing tons of pothole patching, and we've used a new material for that as well, different than just the normal pothole mix that we would typically use, and that seems to be working very well. We're also doing, actually today and tomorrow, we're doing a major section repair on the Antelope Run bike path up by the parking lot off of Tucker. There's probably about 60 feet of bike path that we're replacing. Essentially, we dug it out, recompacted, and replacing the asphalt there. There's some major sinkholes there, again, because of the weather, and that was unsafe on the bike path. Thanks to our crews for that work. We are in the process of doing some road repairs over on Appaloosa in Arabian Estates. That area over there doesn't get a lot of love, and so we're trying to help out some of that asphalt over there as well.
And that's the neighborhood on the northeast side over by the East Cemetery, the big 2.5 acre lots with the manufactured homes. And you're right, it hasn't seen love in a long time, and it's well overdue, but we're putting our time and money and investment into those roads.
Yep.
Good stuff.
I think there's a lot going on, good conversation about things to anticipate. I think we'll have to revisit and get some recap, and we'll find out when Pinion's done, what our thoughts are, and how soon after Pinion is done will we actually get to drive on it?
That's a great question. Don't know the direct answer for you. I am hopeful that if paving occurs next week, that by the end of the month of May or beginning of June, we'll be able to put traffic on the road. The issue becomes, again, striping is the same issue that we mentioned in slurry seal. So you finish the asphalt, you got to wait a couple of weeks at least before you stripe. Otherwise, you can actually damage the asphalt that you just did. There's also a number of ancillary things that are happening as part of that road. We installed, if anyone of you guys drove by and saw the giant 48-inch concrete RCP culvert stuff, there was some underground work that was associated with that project. In the same way, there's shoulder work to make sure that the water that drains off those hills goes somewhere instead of washing out a brand new road. So don't know quite where we're at on that stuff, but I would think that into May, early June is a realistic timeline for us to get traffic onto that road, presuming the paving goes as planned. So I did have one question for you guys. I know we made a map, at least internally, that kind of laid this stuff out. Have we shared that map, or have we talked about doing that? I don't know.
We have two maps.
Okay.
So the first one that has been released, what I'm holding in my hand, is the slurry seal.
Okay.
We put that out first because I didn't want to confuse everyone with a master map.
Got it.
And they start looking at everything at once. Once we're done with the slurry seal, I'll release the master map that shows the rest of the projects. This is the one that impacts several different neighborhoods. So that's what's out on our social media right now. It has day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 listed in the corner. That's for the slurry seal project that we talked about that here is taking place the end of April, first few days of May.
Yeah, and if we didn't list your street and it's going to get done, it's a slurry seal street. So that's the best place to take a look for the map. So if you didn't hear your street name in what we talked about today, check that map. If you don't see your street on that map either, then you're in the plan. You're just not in the plan for this year. And we're going to find that time in the coming years to take care of that. So, but that's a great resource for people to take a look at to see if they're in the schedule.
We're going to hold you to that, Jay.
Hey, well,
You just made a commitment.
I can lay a lot of asphalt with a lot of money. So like that's just
I'll try to find it.
That's a couple of questions that came up when I put out the press release on the pinion work, Jay, and I already mentioned them to you, so I've directly answered, but these are probably other questions. One, sidewalks, curb, gutter, will they be a part of this part of the pinion project?
No, there is no curb gutter sidewalk as part of the Pinion Street project at this time. In so many ways, for folks that have lived here a while and watched what we've done in the city in the last 10 or 15 years, they may take note that we've done work in stages. We've improved roads in pieces, and the reason we do that is that's how the money comes down the pipe. Sometimes we get money for a new road. That's pretty rare. Sometimes we get money that can only be used on resurfacing an existing road. Sometimes we get money that can only be used on a sidewalk, only on a bike path. There are different flavors of money, and so we work to try to dovetail those together to deliver the project. In this case, there was no way to utilize this money. If you're doing congestion mitigation and air quality, sidewalks don't fit into that. You don't really reduce congestion by building a sidewalk. You might provide an amenity people use, but you're not really taking a lot of cars off the road. That's why those kind of don't dovetail together. But believe me, we've got our eye on ways to make those connections make sense in the future, and we will continue to look for that. So,
okay. Part 2 was, will there be a bike lane?
There is a bike lane, not a bike path, meaning the lane is the 5 feet that is just separated from the vehicle lane by a stripe. So you guys, hopefully that makes sense to the folks listening, is that's the difference between the two. But yes.
Okay. And third, speed bumps.
No chance.
Okay.
Those don't work well during snow and plowing.
Yeah, and transmissions.
And many other reasons.
And I understand the appeal when folks are looking to see someone slow down in their neighborhood, and I certainly understand the concern out in that location. That's not the fix for that concern. The fix is the one most people don't want us to utilize, but is frankly the most effective, which is to ask our officers to police stretches like that and to cite people when they're speeding. And nobody wants a speeding ticket. The hilarious thing is whenever we do these things, half the time the person who's most complaining about someone speeding on the road is the first person the police officer pulls over when we start enforcing in that area. But, it's just the nature of it. The best thing we can do out there is going to be to police that if we end up with speed concerns.
Yeah. So those are the 3 questions I got from social media based on that project. So I want to make sure that we shared it so it answered a few other. So I'm sure we're thinking along those same lines. Sure.
Yep.
Key, I think Jay and Dawn have a lot to do. We better let them go.
I think so.
We've just talked about millions of dollars worth of maintenance in the city infrastructure. They got to work late tonight.
Well, on that line, trying to coordinate this podcast, it's been in the works for well over a week, but it was getting their 2 time schedules to line up where they could get an hour that matched, where we could pull them aside and say, hey, we want to have this conversation. So it's taken quite a while to get this coordinated. So
we just went over more than a dozen projects. All of these are happening in the next 4 or 5 months,
with total of like 7 people working on them, which is the incredible part. That's a lot of work.
But don't forget, there's also a whole another set of projects coming down the pipe right behind those.
Yeah.
So
and behind those, we're queuing up for year 2, 3, 4,
exactly.
and 5.
We're not just executing these 12 projects, and then we're done and we sit back with our feet up.
That's a good point.
We've got another set of projects coming right behind it and moving on.
Yeah, this
Sounds
is
like a podcast, Key.
It does.
This is maybe half the list of what we've got running right now.
Or
is
twice.
What we talked about. Yeah. No, this is half of the total. That's to Don's point. And yeah, maybe we should do a check-in come summer. Key, what do you think? We'll see what we've got off this list and what's still coming, and we can update the listeners on what's going on.
Well, it sounds like Key and I are always available. You guys are never available. What's going on here?
I have no comment.
Yeah, I think they're never available because of these 13 projects we just talked about today. All right, guys, thank you for taking the time. I know the community appreciates it. They like getting these updates because when we talk about our infrastructure, roads, asphalt in particular, I see a spike in the amount of downloads and people that are listening. So this is a great topic that we covered. And if you've got a question that's related to something that we talked about today or something maybe that you'd like us to address, send it to media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We'll try and get to it. We'll get the questions to either Jay or Don or their teams so that we can get an answer back for you, just like we did with those comments that came across social media. We got answers for you today. Whether you like to hear it or not, we got you answers. Just as simple as an email. Guys, appreciate the time.
Thank you, Key.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
And push this information forward. Once you hear it or see it, push it forward. Let your friends and family know what's going on here.
And that means share it.
Oh, that's what it's called in the social media.
Social media, we share it.
I could have used just one word.
Yeah, share
it. Okay.
All right, folks. We appreciate the time you spend with us, and we'll catch you again soon, right here on Tehachapi.
Tehachapi is a conversation about Tehachapi, featuring the community members who make this such a special place to call home. If you have a question or a thought you'd like to share, email media@TehachapiCityHall.com. Thank you to Gary Mazzola for sharing his song, This is Tehachapi.